Today I'm going to talk about how to set up your live streaming studio, the gear and the cameras, and some little tips on the way how to get it up and running. So first of all, you need a capture device to get the HDMI signal from your camera into your computer. That can go over USB or Thunderbolt. You can also use a video mixer such as this one down here. It's called the ATEM Mini from Blackmagic Design. It's a very low budget solution with a lot of possibilities. You have the 4 camera inputs here from HDMI. You have an HDMI output for your mixed output, and also a webcam interface over USB. So that's really convenient. Now, on the computer, you need a streaming software, and the most common one might be OBS, which is a open broadcasting software solution. It's open source. You also have Wirecast, which is a little bit more polished, maybe. It's easier to set up, but you can do pretty much everything in OBS. You also need a streaming provider, such as Facebook, Twitch, YouTube Live, for instance, to get your footage up and running. Now, for the camera, you obviously want a camera that is reliable enough to be standing there for hours and hours at no end and just keep delivering your footage. So that's why you should, of course, choose Panasonic, because they just keep running. So what cameras do I need, and some tip for choosing the right camera. So first of all, I would like to pick one of my favorites. It's a really low budget system camera. It's the GX80. This camera, it does not have a microphone input, but it's not really needed all the time to get the microphone into your camera. You can of course put that into your video mixer or into your computer's sound card as well. So the GX80 is remarkable in that it can output on the small HDMI port here. It can output the HDMI signal while it's recording to the internal SD card as well, up to 4K or HD in up to 50 and 60p. There are other system cameras like the G80. It can do basically the same thing as the GX80, but it also has a microphone input. We have the newer G90 model, which is a newer model after the G80. And this has a microphone input and also headphone out. So this is a really good video-centric camera for live streaming. Obviously, you also have the GH5, which is one of the most video-capable cameras that we have from Panasonic. And you also have the LUMIX G9 here, which is a very capable camera for live streams and video. If you want to go all the way up to the most expensive camera that we have in the lineup right now in system cameras, we have the LUMIX S series S1H. And also, of course, the LUMIX S1 and S1R. Very capable cameras for live streaming and for photography in general. So there are also a few other alternatives that you might not think about for live streaming, which is the LUMIX TZ100 and 200. These cameras can output a clean, stable HDMI signal on the HDMI port. It does not have a microphone input, however, but like we said, you can use that on your computer as well. So there are, of course, also camcorders that work really well for this. They were made for this kind of operation. We have the VX1 and the VXF1, for instance. These are really good camcorders with 4K and lots of good features, and of course microphone inputs and headphone outputs. You also have the smaller one, this is the W580. We have the V800. Those are models that work as well. They don't give you, of course, the same image quality that you get from the more expensive models. But I also want to talk about one really unique camera that is quite new on the market, which is the Panasonic X1500 and X2000. The X1500 and X2000 models are unique cameras in a way that they can live stream directly to the internet from a Wi-Fi connection. So the only thing you need for this camera to get up and running and stream to live Facebook or YouTube Live, for instance, is a wireless connection. So you can use your phone and share your internet connection with the camera and it will work out. So that's really convenient. Other than that, we have a few other cameras that are easy to forget. We have the FSET 300, which is a very cheap long zoom camera. It's a really good video camera, in fact. You have a microphone input. It's got a 25 to 600 millimeter 2.8 lens. It's got really nice smooth zooming, actually. And it's a great camera for live streaming, so consider that as well. Lastly, we have the FSET 1000 Mark II. It's a bigger sister or brother of the FSET 300. It's got a bigger sensor. It's a 1-inch sensor in this one, 25 to 400 millimeter lens. And it's also really good for live streaming. Now, there's also a camera that is unique on the market, which is the FSET 2000. It has been on the market for a few years, but this camera is quite unique in the way that it is a stills camera, but it's also a full camcorder. So the FSET 2000, it can even take a tripod remote control that can control the zoom motor. One of those that fits to the other Panasonic cameras, like the Manfrotto 901 something. So the FSET 2000 is a really capable video camera. It can do smooth zoom ins and outs, and it has a lot of broadcast quality codecs. Right, so what else do I need to get up and running? Of course you need good sound. So a good microphone is mandatory to get things working. Now, a very easy way of getting your talk out there on the internet in good quality is to use a lavalier microphone, a wireless one. That's what I'm using right now here. I use the Panasonic UW-Mic 9, which is a great little wireless transmitter and receiver. The good thing about this package is that you can get the Panasonic UW-Mic 9 in a double kit. So you get 2 transmitters and you get 1 receiver with 2 channels, so it can take in both of those transmitters separately. What is so good about that is that you can get a selection of either microphone. So if you have 2 people talking, you can separate them. So that's really good. In this package, the Panasonic UW-Mic 9 system, you also can buy a reporter microphone if you want to have that for your live reports. So if you're not using a wireless microphone setup, a really good way to go is to use a shotgun microphone that you put on your camera. This makes it quite easy to operate in different events where it's not so easy to just put a wireless microphone onto somebody. Such as this one here, the Aston. It's an XLR microphone for camera mount. It's a really good option. There are a few different models from Panasonic as well, and they could either be XLR connected or 3.5 millimeter microphone jack. Speaking of XLR, the most cameras have a 3.5 millimeter input jack for microphones. But for the more professional camcorders and also for the GH5, you can buy a separate XLR box, looks like this, that you put in the camera's hot shoe. This fits the GH5 and the S1, S1R and the S1H cameras. This will pick up the XLR inputs on the side here, and it's also very easy to set up your audio on the controls on the panel here. The really good thing about using XLR microphones is that you can use longer cable cords without picking up noise, because the signal from a XLR microphone is called balanced signal versus unbalanced. So when you have a balanced audio system, it will just be more bulletproof to noise from the outside. Another microphone that I really like is the Aston SMX30 microphone. It's a combined stereo and mono 3.5mm attached microphone that you put in the hot shoe on your camera. Now also consider getting a good pair of monitor headphones, because without really good headphones, you don't know exactly what your audio is sounding like. You could of course use the typical white ones that comes with your iPhone. There's a lot of filmmakers using it. But if you get a really good pair of monitor headphones, such as the Sennheiser HD25 or 26, then you know exactly where the sound is. So when you set up your live streaming camera, you will of course need a tripod or a GorillaPod or something to support your camera with. Another thing to consider is how to supply your camera with power, because you don't want to run out of battery in the middle of a live stream. So a good way of supplying power to your camera is using these battery plugs that we have from Panasonic. There are different battery plugs for different cameras. And so you pick one of those that is working for your camera, and you also need a power supply to get into the mains outlet. So you put that into the bottom of your camera instead of the battery. So you just put the battery out and put this blind plug in there and plug it into the power supply. The power supply is called DMW AC10. That works for all of the cameras that is on the table here right now in terms of the LUMIX cameras. So you might want to look at the lighting setup as well. For the streaming setup that I use right here is 3 Rotolight small ones, and also a LEDGO 1x1 meter panel above my head here. There's also very good small solutions if you're on the field and you want to have a temporary light. There is the LumiCube Air and the LumiCubes, and I really love those. Those are great. Now some other things to consider. When you're live streaming from your computer, and sometimes the connection can be a little bit up and down, so you really want to have a local recording to your computer. For that matter, you can use a SSD drive. For instance, I have one here from Delkin Juggler. It's a really good backup recording device just to put your recordings onto there. That you can do from OBS or from Wirecast Studio. Also worth considering is a secondary monitor, so you can hook that up to your computer or directly on HDMI from the ATEM Mini here. It has a HDMI output for monitoring, so you can put a monitor or a recorder even on there. And finally, it could be also worth mentioning that you might want to have a camera that you can bring with you. So if you have some fixed cameras set up for your video mixer, you might want to also have a mobile one that you can just carry around in the event. Let's say there's a concert or anything like that. So then it's very, very good to have a wireless HDMI transmitter. So you can transmit your signal from your camera to the computer or the video mixer without having a cable. So for that matter, there is a very good brand called Holyland. I have tested these myself. They are great products. They will transmit a HDMI signal for a range of meters. So check that out. All right, so I hope you got everything in there for your new streaming setup. And if there's anything, just let us know in the comments. And good luck streaming. Cheers. Bye.